Welcome, YouTube. This your boy Slick. Today we're going to talk about Trumbull and Forest Street. Now, on this street, on Forest, off of Trumbull, we had a friend that lived over there, and his dad was a police officer. I don't know if his dad was retired or if his dad was active at the time. He might have been a detective. I'm not for sure. Maybe a detective. But anyways, his dad was in the law enforcement, and he was a dude we ran around with, and when he was a teenager, everybody used to hang out on Trumbull and stuff like that all around the neighborhood. And sometimes we would encounter each other. Sometimes, different guys would be hanging out with different people and stuff like that. It just all depends on what the situation was. Uh, but anyways, this guy right here, he was a good guy, and he had a encounter with a guy right on the corner of Forest and Trumbull. And what had happened is the dude tried to rob him, and he got in a fight with him. And then he actually lived on Forest about a block. I mean, not even a block, like a half a block off of Trumbull. So he was real close to where he lived when this took place. And this was like right on the corner of Forest and Trumbull. And there's a building right there, and it kind of, the front door was like made it in the corner of the building and kind of set inwards of the building. And this is where this took place at. And actually, he was going home, and just this guy was standing there and just had an encounter with him. And but anyways, this guy, they got into a fight and stuff. I believe the guy was trying to rob him or did take his wallet or something. I'm not for sure all the details, but what had happened is they got into it, and so like I said, he was a teenager, and this other dude was like a grown dude. And anyways, he got mad, and during the altercation, he went to his apartment, and he got a butcher knife. Then he went back where the dude was at, because obviously the dude didn't leave. He was just hanging around there. So he might have been just hanging. Sometimes guys did that. They would hang on a corner and stuff, and just random people would come by, and then they would like rob them, take their wallet, and they wouldn't leave. They'd just stay there. That's the way it was back then. and they would get like random people, and then time they did, 3 or 4 people, then then they would leave, something like that. But anyways, this guy. He was, like I said, he was a teenager, but he was the wrong guy to do that to, because anyways, he was just real hot about the situation. And like I said, I don't know if dude ended up taking his wallet or just trying to take his wallet, but they had an altercation, and and stuff. And he got, maybe the guy got the best of him. I'm not certain on it. And this is just secondhand information, but this is what happened in our neighborhood to a guy that we know. And anyways, he had went home and he got a butcher knife out of his house. And he went back to confront the dude and then stabbed the dude up. And I don't know if this guy passed away or just got severely injured. Because, we heard that part of it. Then we also heard that, and this come from his dad, I believe. And then we also heard that he had went to jail, for doing that. But like I said, I don't know if he killed the dude or if he just stabbed the dude up and stuff like that, and still went to jail for doing that. But that was just a sad situation because, like I said, he was a teenager, and I think he just acted on, when the incident happened. I guess it just, they ain't no telling what was going through his head, but he just directly, made a decision like he was going to get a weapon and he was going to take care of this dude, And that's actually what happened, but the problem is then he ended up going to jail. I don't know how much time he ended up getting. But that's a sad situation, But then, you never know what people would do in that position. Like, if you was a teenager, 16, 17 years old or whatever, and a grown dude, basically attacks you trying to take your wallet, and you get in a scuffle and stuff, and my guess is he got the worst end of the deal at first, and that's what made him go get a weapon and come back to the situation. But and it cost him, time in jail and stuff like that. And I remember going to his dad's house after the fact with another guy to find out what happened. And I remember his dad was real mad about it. And his dad said he just threw away his life, whatever. And this could have been, right. This could have been before he even ended up going to court, whatever. I don't know. But, it was right after, we went to find out what happened. And then that's what his dad had said. But his dad didn't have much to say. He was just mad about the situation. And then he said that he threw away his life. But at this point, I don't know if he made it to court yet or if he already went to court and his dad knew how much time he was getting. But we didn't get that information. But, and today, I hope he's doing all right today. But that was just one friend of ours on Trumbull Avenue that went through a situation. And, obviously he was real mad to go to, run to his house because he was only like behind that building where it happened at. That's the alleyway. And then he lived like right across the alley, like right there on Forest Street. So he must have just reacted real quick and didn't really think it out and just went and got a knife and then went and, stabbed this dude up, stuff like that. And like I said, I don't know if he killed dude or what, but anyways, he was in some big trouble, and he had got sent away. But like I said, I hope he's doing all right today, and you know, that's just one guy in our neighborhood of many that had got in trouble and went to jail, you know, and and then some guys they made it a few more years longer, but then some guys just you know make the wrong decisions, and stuff like that. And then you got to ask yourself, well, if you was in that position and you was walking home and then somebody attacked you on the corner and you was right close to your house and you got jumped and then the guy, I the word is I don't know if the dude ended up getting his wallet or if he's trying to get his wallet, you know what I mean? But that's what the situation was. But obviously it made him so mad that he went home and got a knife and came back and retaliated, on dude. But he ended up going to jail for it. And I don't know how long he went to jail for it, but it all depend on if he just severely injured the dude or if he actually killed the dude. I really don't know what the situation was, but it was a dude we knew in the neighborhood, and it was just a sad thing to hear because you know for one, the dude that was trying to rob him, you know that's probably the last thing he thought that was going to happen to him. You know what I mean? And so that just goes to show you, just because you know, you could be the perpetrator or you could be the victim. It just depends. You never know how it's going to unfold. So, that being said, it ain't really cool to be out there doing stuff like robbing people and stuff like that because it might backfire on you and cost you your life or severely injure you or something like that. And then also, he paid the price too because he had to go to jail, but he was basically the victim. And I don't know what somebody that's listening, I don't know what you would do in that situation, you know. Because some people say, well, if you can't take a ass whooping, you can't give a ass whooping. You know what I mean? That's just a saying they had back in the day. And sometimes, it's very hard for people to do, and there's only a very few that can actually do this, where you get into an altercation with somebody and you just take it as it is and you just leave it alone. Knowing you can go back and retaliate and get even. Some people think about it before they do. And see, he didn't think about it. He just went home and got a butcher knife, and that's what it was. But some people would just, I ain't saying that they would actually let it go. I'm just saying they might, if it happened to them, they might just go and call the police and have the police deal with it or something like that instead of, retaliating, and then next thing you know, you go to jail for many years or it just depends on what they give you for doing something like that. So that being said, you need anything like that ever happens to you, just think hard on it because there's a lot of guys doing time and it's already done time, and they'll be the first to tell you that it ain't worth it. You know what I mean? Because it ain't worth losing years of your life and possibly your whole life if you do something that drastic. And a lot of times I see these young cats. You see them on the news, you see them on YouTube, you see them just all over, and they're young and they ain't got a clue. They're just out there being wild. Got weapons and all that, and they ain't got a clue what they're facing. And the thing is, it's really dangerous because it could cost them their life doing crazy stuff. Whether it be going to jail for the rest of your life or just basically getting killed yourself. So really, a lot of these young cats, they need to, think about what's going on and take another direction because you probably can't see it right now, but if you take a good direction, later you'll be able to become somebody's husband, some kid's grandfather, and stuff like that. That's what kind of future you could have down the road. But if you're a real young cat and you're just wilding out and stuff like that, that's shortgevity right there. That it's not gonna. There's just a very few people that's made it through that kind of stuff and still around. You know what I mean? But the ones that went through it and it's did a lot of time for it and stuff, they'll be the first to tell you that ain't the way to go. Because you just you ruin your life, you ruin everybody's life that's around you. If you got kids, you ruin their life, your family's life, all that. Because if you get sent away for 20 years or 25 years or something like that, it's not bad just for you. It's bad for your whole family. So I hope that young cats, if any young cats are listening to this, that they just think about, and I'm not saying let people run over you or anything like that. I'm just saying if something, don't be out there just looking to get in trouble and stuff like that. And don't be, walking around with a coin on your shoulder or something like that. Because that's just short lived, and just think about what you do on a day-to-day basis because it's real important that you live as long as you possibly can, and if something like that was to happen, it's up to each of us and each individual to make the right decision. And sometimes people don't know what kind of decision they'll make when that occurred. And what I mean by like somebody jumping on you or trying to rob you or something like that, you just really don't know what you would do until it actually happens, to be honest. But what I'm saying is just from, seeing what's been happening, I just know for a fact that, it's really just better to, don't be out there looking for trouble and don't be out there causing no trouble, because if so, it's going to, it's liable to cost you your life, whether it be, getting locked up for a long time or somebody gunning you down, Cause you just never know, just because you got a weapon or something like that, that doesn't mean anything. That, it just doesn't mean anything just because you got a weapon. It doesn't mean nothing because, anybody can go down with a weapon or without a weapon, So you know, it just depends on the way it's supposed to be played out and things like that. So you just never know what might happen. You know what I mean? Because you could actually be in a shootout with somebody and then shoot somebody and take off running, and then a car could come by real fast and hit you, and and kill you, for you just trying to get away. Just some random something could happen, something like that. Or the police can be in the vicinity and see what you did, and then they shoot you down because you got a gun or whatever, you know. And then there was this one incident, and I thought was really crazy, but it just goes back to what I'm saying. There was this one incident where this dude was trying to rob this other guy, and he shoots the guy in the face. And then what happens is the bullet ricochets off it kills the guy, but it ricochets off his bone, and then ricochets off him and hits the shooter and kills him. So they're both dead right there, laying on the floor on the ground, and the gun's laying on the ground. And then when the police come and stuff, and after they investigate it, because they figured out that's what happened. Dude was trying to rob him. He shoots him, and the bullet ricochets off him and hits the shooter, the guy that's shooting. So they're both laying there dead by one bullet. So that's some crazy incident right there too, because I bet that guy never thought that hey, I'm gonna rob this dude, or I'm gonna shoot this dude, rob him, and then take off, not knowing that he's fixing to end his life soon as he pulls that trigger. You know what I'm saying? So this. It's just a message for the younger dudes out there to just really think about what you're doing, and hopefully you ain't doing no dirt, and I know everybody has to hustle and try to get money, any way they know how, but they're just today's time, it ain't nothing like, it's nothing like when I was coming up. There's so many ways to get money now legally that you ain't gotta do anything wrong. You know what I mean? So if you're out there doing stuff wrong, trying to get money, you're doing it the wrong way. Because it's just not worth it today's time. And today's time ain't no joke neither, because a long time ago, if you got in trouble, whatever the case may be, you would get sentenced and get sent to jail. But it's nowhere near what kind of time they'll give you today. Today is no joke. If you go up in front of a judge today and you did something drastic, you can just, go ahead and take your toothbrush with you, because you can definitely know you're going away for a while. And what I'm saying by that is just the sentences today versus a long time ago is just more stiffer, and a lot more years they add on, and just, over the years, the laws change and stuff like that. So it just gets more rougher and stuff like that. So being out there doing bad things, it's just not worth it, I mean, it really ain't. You can, just think about you see a dude with like 5,000, 10,000 in cash. And then you think, well, I'm gonna get this guy and stuff like that. But it just a lot of times it just don't work out that way, you know. Because say you did do it and you get away, when you get caught, and you will get caught, because there's no getting away in this day and time. Because it's just too many people with cameras, too many cameras around, too many. It's just no way to get away from doing like that. So what I'm saying is, if you did something like that and went to, got arrested, went to court and stuff like that, they're gonna give you a ton of years that if it's not worth the little bit of money that you got, you know. And some people rob people and don't know if they even got $1 on them. You know, they just caught herself going to rob somebody. And then, in these days and time, people really don't carry no money, And, so, just basically just doing dirt today in today's time, it'll cost you more years in jail than what you're going to receive, And then a lot of people think they get away with it because they had actually did it. They left the scene, and they think they can get away with it. But the thing is, they're going to come and get you and be knocking on your door, and you're going to be wondering how they figured it out, you know what I mean? Or something like that. So the best thing to do is just don't put yourself in that position. Don't put your mama in that position. Don't put your family in that position. Your friends, everybody, man, because once something happens to you, it don't just affect you. It affects everybody around you in some way, shape, or form. So it just ain't worth it. Not in today's time, it just ain't worth it. So, and you might hear stories from guys that, did a lot of time in jail and stuff. And then now they're on a podcast talking about, the things they did. And they can talk about it if they've been charged with it and they did the time for it. And that's the only reason you see them on the internet talking about things they used to do. But once you hear that kind of stuff, you just cannot think you can, follow that pattern, because most of these guys are talking about stuff they did like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and it was a different time, and today's time, you just can't do things like that, Which, don't get me wrong, people still try to do things like that, but it never works out for them. You always see them get caught, whether it be, 1 week later, 2 months later, 2 years later. It just depends, because somebody knows about what you did. And once they get caught up in some trouble, they're going to end up saving that to try to get themselves out of trouble. So they're going to end up telling on you, and then you're going to end up getting caught anyways, whether it be way down the road or whatever. So you need to think about that, and just, the best thing to do is just make money, the legit way. There's all kind of ways to make money. And like I said in a previous video of mine, I'm gonna do a video and let everybody know, because a lot of people ain't up on game and they don't know how to make money without breaking the law. You know what I mean? They think, well, you just gotta go get a 9 to 5 and all that. But there's a lot of ways to make money, and legit, where you ain't breaking the law. and I'm going to do something on that. One day I'm going to do a video on all that. So the people who ain't up on it, they will be up on it when I make the video. And it'll just be something that does, show you that all different avenues you can do to make money. And then you just basically pick one that works for you and just roll with it. You know what I mean? And then some people, they'll pick 1, 2, or 3 different things and do them all at once. So if one don't work out, the other one will, or something like that. So, it just all depends, how it is, but the main message I'm trying to give is just, I want to see nobody go to jail. And I just like for the younger generation to make some good decisions. And, make your mom feel good and everybody feel good about you when you're making good decisions. Even if you're around somebody just making some bad decisions, just say, yo, I ain't down like that. I'm not going to do that and whatever. And just, sometimes that's just what you got to do, And I don't want to bring up a movie, but I'm going to. The movie Boyz in the Hood, I don't know if everybody's seen it, but in this scenario, this guy gets in the car with his friends and they're going to retaliate against some dudes that, shot his friend. But then once they're on the way because they know where the guys are at, he tells his friend to let him out the car. And then he just, he ends up getting out the car before they roll up on the guys. And, so he exits the situation so he don't get caught up in all that trouble. But them guys go ahead and do it in the movie. They go ahead and do it and carry it out. But then the next day he sees the police across the street at their house arresting them, and then they go away for a long time. And then what he did, he just made a good decision and he just didn't get, even though it was his friend that got killed, he didn't tie himself up like that. And, them guys went to jail and he didn't, that's basically what it is. So if you haven't seen the movie Boyz in the Hood, watch it and you'll see what I'm talking about.